Welcome to Die Mad About It. It's the show where we tell Doug to fuck off and he will, dies mad about it. We're your host, Brooke, aka the Truthful G, and I'm with
Amy, the president of We Mad.
And we have special guest speakers today that I'm really excited to have on. It's Running with Scissors and Potty Mouth Pollyanna from TikTok. And would you guys both introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself? We'll go ahead and start with Mandy.
Hey everyone, this is Mandy, or Potty Mouth Pollyanna. I like to make men on the internet mad all the time. And you'll find me residing in Wisconsin with my 3 dogs and my 3 kids. Weird that I put the dogs first, but
is it though?
Not really.
And then Running with Scissors, how would you like us to call you today? Or what are you all about?
You can just call me Siobhan. It's fine.
Okay.
It's like whatever.
Okay. Siobhan's very laid back. Follow her TikTok and smoke a joint. Follow her TikTok. If you hate men, follow Mandy and Siobhan. Your life will be very good. So today's episode, we're kind of centering around why white women white so hard. Why are white women so comfortable with the patriarchy? When it does nothing for them? Examples would include Roe v. Wade, amongst other things. Why do white women continue to put up with and promote blatant misogyny and oppression against women when it's clearly not serving them? So I'll let y'all do your hot takes on that. I don't know, Amy, do you want to go first real quick?
Yeah, sure. You know what I've seen time and time again with videos of these white women that are constantly speaking against feminists, for example, because they don't understand the simplicity of what feminism actually means, which is literally just equality, equity for both men and women, same footing. That's literally the grounds of it all. But they want to shout purple hair, angry, lesbian, feminist, blah, 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 and paint an ugly picture. But it actually is working for them in terms of male attention. And unfortunately, I feel like these women, sadly, are very, very not only ingrained in the misogyny themselves, but they truly believe deep down that men are the end all and be all, and they won't survive without men. And so it is that pick me mentality. And I think they're really catering to men because they feel like they need that sort of attention. Just like children, sometimes they will attempt in any way to get attention, whether it be negative or positive. I see that with these women too.
Yeah. I mean, Siobhan, I've heard you talk about on your TikTok how white women will excuse anything for comfort. Some people talk about how it's a hierarchy issue, but maybe you would say it's more so no autonomy outside of their counterparts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. For me, it's something that I've actually done kind of like an internal deep dive on my own internalized misogyny that I may or may not have addressed, ones that I have and ones that I haven't. And now that I've reflected and know that they're there, I can kind of analyze that a little bit more. But I think the major problem with white women is the fact that a lot of us completely separate racism and the patriarchy, and they think that they're two completely separate issues, and that one can be dealt with while the other one is ignored and put to the side. And we time and time again that obviously that is not the case. It doesn't make sense to keep doing it this way, but we do. And so because of that, I think all this performative anti-racism and whatnot, none of it makes sense, because in the same breath, so many of these, white women who are like anti-racist and selling all these, fucking cups and stuff in church, they perpetuate the patriarchy in the same breath. And so it's like, you hang a BLM flag, but, in the same breath, like, you're perpetuating, all these misogynistic things, like calling other women, and doing all these things. And so because they can't recognize that those things are one and the same, because people forget the patriarchy came before white supremacy. The patriarchy has been there long before white supremacy, historically. So white women are the worst because they have the closest proximity to whiteness. So in the patriarchy, they're going to try and survive.
Just to feed off of your, and not to cut you off, I'm so sorry,
You're
just
fine.
to kind of feed off of that, the whole point of privilege and how white women are not willing to see it for what it is, because I think white women see privilege as you're saying that their struggles weren't their struggles, or you're taking something away from them. When you're saying you were just born into privilege, white women are offended a lot of times, thinking, well, I had to struggle, I worked really, really hard. Well, that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about privilege. We're talking about not having struggles based on just the color of your skin. We're talking about privilege because your skin is white, so you have access to things that other people don't have access to. And they're just, I think they're unwilling to see that.
What do you think about that, Mandy?
Well, I think what, we have to really look at is, as you said, the patriarchy has been around, well, forever, essentially, right? The whole concept of masculinity is that they're superior, they're stronger, they're bigger, they can do the things that women can't. And femininity is meant to weaken us in a way. And one of the tools that they have used, and for me, I think in terms of like how they've really marketed this whole, really the patriarchy is so well marketed, right?
Yeah.
It sells people on it, is that they've convinced women to fight amongst themselves and to compete against each other for that attention, to capitalize on the patriarchy, especially white women. That's where we see so many white women who will fight against feminism because they want that ultimate pick-me. And they have done such a great job at convincing women that we are each other's enemies, so that we are not focused on who the real enemy is. And unfortunately, that stems generational, right? That's a really difficult generational thing to break. You see it in young girls are taught to compete against each other versus coming together and fighting against the patriarchy. Because as long as they keep us fighting against each other, calling each other out, somebody mentioned like the blue hairs and they got the piercings and the tattoos and feminists, as long as they keep us doing that, we're never going to be able to get past that. And in particular within white women, we are, I would say we are top tier at fighting within each other across, the globe, but especially in the United States.
Well, that actually brings us like into our next discussion point of like the origin of like, there's a lot of people who will say that the patriarchy is marketed via the Bible, and that's true, and churches and religions in general. And this is kind of where I start to insert my own personal like hot take on things. Like, I used to be a conservative, I used to be a Republican, and there was, as Shavana said, a lot of dismissing of things that were blatantly wrong, because I was excusing that for my own personal comfort. And I didn't want to, and I want to make it very clear to the listeners at home, like, none of the women that are here today are here to say not all white women. I think that if you're at home and you're wondering if you're a part of the problem, that's the first step, because you're born racist, you're born misogynist. Like, this is the society that we're indoctrinated into. And you need to just not say not all white women and not get offended, and you need to just set the example. That's what we're here to do today. We're just trying to work through this and see, help people understand that it is, and I'm not making excuses, these are just facts. There are cases where it's an ignorance issue. For me, growing up in rural Midwestern Nebraska, there was not representation shown of women not acting this way. And there wasn't, when you know better, you do better. And I know that Google exists and it's not POC's job to educate us, but it's not our job to educate men. So, but you do need to educate yourself. Drew Affalo actually says, she's like, it's not your fault if you're born with internalized misogyny, but if you die like that, that's on you. And so that's what I would have to insert into, how white women get to be where they're at, is they're conditioned into it. And, but the origin of white women behind the patriarchy would be, like Mandy was referencing, that there wasn't autonomy outside of the white man until the 70s. Like, couldn't have bank accounts, you get fired for being pregnant. We still see women getting fired for being pregnant. And since we're free from a lot of those constraints now, why do you think this nonsense continues? What are we doing with pick-me's like Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene? what do you think? Siobhan, you go first.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with like there's within there's so many different like nuances and like the patriarchy itself is just so like complicated and convoluted. But like with people, the Lauren Boeberts and those women of the world, a lot of that, they're part of that whole alpha male culture and all of that. And one thing that's really interesting, that I've only ever seen in white males, like where they demand this type of loyalty, because above everything else, like they can drop the ball, they can drop the hammer. And what's so messed up about that is, loyalty is not always being there no matter what, no matter how egregious the crime, no matter how egregious they hurt you. Like, it's just no matter what, you're always there. And that's not what loyalty is. And that's something that white women don't understand. Loyalty it's a tremendous mutual respect for another and for each other's boundaries, and it's always supporting each other and each other's endeavors. And when you have, this alpha male, you're never supported because you're always supporting him, and that's not respect, that's servitude.
Right. Yeah.
And I think because there's this mentality that is ingrained, and then you have religion to back that up, to have that loyalty, like that whole culture of it, white women have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. What say you, Mandy?
So even though now since the 70s, yeah, we do have access to a lot more. We also still have things like Daughters of the Confederacy, right? We still have these incredibly strong facets of religion, and these that are continuing that sort of generational idea of what a woman's place is. And as white women, we are in close proximity to the ultimate power in this country, which is white men. So, they're going to want, they align themselves, and they are taught this from a young age, in every prince and princess story, we are taught to align yourself with the most powerful, the most affluent. And in this country, that's white men. And if you are a white woman, you are a million steps closer to that than anybody else. So you're, and it is comfort. It is learning to, it is trying to capitalize on that without recognizing how damaging that is, and how these men owe you no loyalty. To your point with loyalty, these women who are aligning themselves, like the Lauren Boeberts and the Marjorie Taylor Greens, are going to be just as quickly out of a job when they get exactly the things they're advocating for, right?
Absolutely. They'll be the first ones to be pushed off a cliff. I say it all the time. You're not in their club. It's a big club and you're not in it. You think you are.
And we have, as white women, we have a lot of work to do. And I just wanted to touch on, you mentioned, we absolutely are not saying that all white women. And I feel like sometimes when we are speaking to this sort of stuff online, you'll get that. And I always encourage women, I said, remember how you feel when you get the not all men crowd, right? You'll hear those, well, not all men. And our answer is, okay, but it's all men until it's no men. So I always sort of approach my internalized misogyny, my bad behaviors, that I don't always are not intentional, as it is all white women till it's no white women, right? Until we have managed to shift that tide. And I think we have to continue that. And so I'll even check in with myself and be like, you're not going to be the not all men on this. Like, don't be that person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it works for them. Look at the power some of these women are in by aligning with white men. But again, as you said, they're going to be the first ones out as soon as they get.
I gotta think deep down, they're absolutely miserable. If you could really peel away the layers of that onion, there's no way there's true happiness. But I'm not even sure they recognize what happiness would look like, because I think they are measuring their identity and their success based on which man picks them.
It's very superficial. The lifestyle I was in was very, very superficial. And I think, Siobhan, you I don't remember if you were a former conservative or not, or what is your history on that? I remember you telling me that your dad was like just super radicalized.
Well, my dad was a nut. He was but he was like the leftist. My father was a leftist. Like, he's like be running around the, anarchist cookbook, happy as a pig in shit. But no, nice. My mother, that's the very conservative Irish Catholic, and that's what I grew up with. And I grew up with a very rigid Irish Catholic grandfather, because my parents got divorced, and very Republican. I mean, when he died, Right to Life like sent a handwritten letter to my grandmother because they did so much Right to Life work. Like that's how
Wow.
like that was it. So I grew up with a lot of that, but it was always wrong to me though. It always felt wrong. I never, I was never, that's probably why I got beat, it's because I just always never went with the flow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was raised Roman Catholic as well. And in that type of environment, even if it's not in your face patriarchy, white male power, it's subtle, and you're surrounded by it. You're smothered by the subtle patriarchy. If you look at the front, and in my Roman Catholic church and the multiple ones that I went to, it was always white and it was always boys and men. Always. I mean, that messaging right there says everything you need to say, right? And you're praying to a God that has now been whitewashed. So you're supposed to see this almighty male that tells us how to be, and that's where all, God fearing. It's like insanity. And I didn't get it either, Savon. I was with you. I was like, yeah, I'm not really jiving with this at all.
Yeah, they're nuts.
Right.
Like mom's oldest brother, guy's off his rocker, like totally nuts. And he's got 10 kids. We call him Jesus John, and his kids are the 10. And it's
Everyone, Siobhan. I think that kind of brings us to like, we're talking about origins of white women and how they came to be that way. And then like what Amy and Siobhan are referencing, and probably what Mandy has experienced as well, and what I experienced as a young child with, I mean, my parents are QAnon now, so that tells you everything you need to know about my parents.
Ouch.
We don't talk. It's
Right.
fine. That's fine.
It's fine.
They'll live the fantastic life.
Whatever, it's cool.
I'm pretty sure they both have Alzheimer's. Whatever. I don't know. So that's Trump's whole base is ignorance. Go for it, mom and dad.
Yeah.
I can't help them if they're voluntarily ignorant. But so when we get into origins and we get into generational stuff, like Amy and Siobhan and Mandy, you've all in your TikToks talk about breaking those chains. And we heard a little voice inside of us that didn't seem right to us. And so how can we set the example now? Like, what do white women need to be doing better? These all seem like really dumb questions, but we're going to ask them. What do white women need to be doing better? How can we combat the powers that be? What would we like to see going forward? How can we teach others to look outside the scope of their privilege and see the bigger picture? Because when I talk to white women about this, they always want to talk about, well, this is how it affects me. Well, this is how I would feel if it was me. And so we need to break that barrier and really try to see things from other people's perspectives. And we're never going to know what it's like to actually be a Native woman, a Black woman, a Hispanic woman. We're never going to be able to have that kind of perspective. So how do we, you know what I'm saying? How do we get there? I mean, Mandy, what do you think?
Well, I mean, we can't be quiet. I mean,
Yeah.
we can't back off. I was getting my hair done right before the midterm, and I heard a woman just complaining, well, I never know what to believe. Well, first of all, anytime you're seeing ads politically, they're ads. They're meant to sell you. You don't trust those. And believe it or not, Google doesn't require a subscription. So I felt empowered in that moment to very, assertively let her know, hey, if you want any information, I can tell you right now, here's what's going on. Like, and I discussed Wisconsin and the 1849 abortion law and how it was before women even had a vote. So why should those men be dictating what happens now? And I took a chance. It could have gone south. It could have been a fight. It could have been a lot of things. But she was, polite Midwesterner and didn't argue with me. But she, I'd like to believe she took that information before the election and hopefully was able to do it and vote in her own best interest. But first and foremost, we have to not be quiet and we have to live the example. So if we catch ourselves, living in our using our internalized misogyny, using the patriarchy to our advantage, ask yourself why. Ask yourself, what does this mean for other people? Ask yourself, is this going to harm other people? One example that made me just fucking angry this week was when my daughter informed me, and I haven't figured out exactly how I'm going to address this yet.
You're about to tell me something that's going to make me mad.
Make so mad. I know. I'm already mad.
Her teacher in driver's ed, and we are in an all-white district. It's really all-white, very Republican area. told the girls, if you get pulled over, just cry.
Nope.
White woman tears. That's why there's a name for it.
And I said, I'm like,
No.
women die. Women have died because of white women tears. Do not tell 16-year-old girls that if you get pulled over by the police, just cry.
Immediately no.
The fuck?
Oh, man.
Well, you know, like you talk about leading by example, and we have to live the example, and you know, providing women with information and hoping they do what they can do with it. And you also talk about how we have to, when I unlearned all of my misogyny and all my racism, I found myself constantly have to questioning my own thoughts. And so that is exhausting. But even better than that, like Siobhan, you've had your kids in your TikToks at times, and like they're cussing, they're doing things, and you're having real life conversations with them. I mean,
Yeah.
and what would you say is the way to not only work on yourself, but also teach your children?
I'm just really honest with my kids. I mean, honest, age appropriately honest.
Sure.
But I don't lie to them. And, you know, and it's important that, you know, as white women raise our children to be, number one, okay with the word no. And number two, be able to say sorry, fucking mean it, and actually be accountable for your actions and recognize how your actions hurt another human being. And it's simple empathy. And, I think we, like, honestly, as white women, our job as raising white humans is number one to instill that accountability from the get-go. Absolutely. And that's something that I try to do with my kids. And you know, they lie, they're little kids, you know, they like do shit.
I tell you that changes when they become teenagers, but yeah, no. I will say that my daughter is a raging feminist. Like, she took me and like tripled it. And for me, it's about teaching my boys accountability, and saying you're sorry and meaning it is a big one, because an I'm sorry but is not an I'm sorry. And the gaslighting in young men will start early. They will start with their moms, and they will try to work you over.
God, I know. I had a 16-year-old boy who lives with his dad now because but
yeah.
no, one thing I've learned is when apologizing, it's hard to say, because you want to like try to maybe not excuse the behavior, but give an explanation for it. And one thing I learned recently is that it is usually acceptable to say, I'm sorry, I'll work on that, because that's honest.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like this morning with my son, I don't remember exactly what it was, but you're talking about gaslighting. Like he'll do it. He's very good at it, and I can see it, and it's bullshit. And I called him on it this morning in the kitchen, and he tried to, you know, gaslight his way out of gaslighting me. And I said, Evan, you are a white male. Stop acting like this. It's dangerous. And he's 10, and he understands the gravity of it, because it actually hurt his feelings when I said it.
Yeah.
Because he stands. And I said, buddy, I'm not trying to hurt your feelings. I said, I'm trying to make you aware that your actions are dangerous. And as you get older, those grow exponentially. And the responsibility with that is really very intense. And you got to be ready for that. So you can't be gaslighting people.
Yeah.
And he understands, you know, and people just need to start treating their kids as if they're actual small humans and not an extension of themselves. And I think that's where a lot of change comes from too, you know, is this narcissistic codependent relationship that's instilled in, like, that's a normal marriage, you know, with white women and white men. And that is not healthy. That's not normal. And we need to stop telling our daughters and our sons that it is, and that it's okay, because it's not.
Yeah. And I love the word that you used, awareness. I think that's key right there. And I totally agree. I am the same way with my children. They age appropriate, but they literally know that it's an open door. If they have any questions, I think communication is key. But I really think calling it out in the moment, just like you did, and that type of awareness, because I think sometimes it's just very easy, especially for kids, 9, 10, 12, you know, the preteens and the teens. It's really easy to tap into privilege if you have it right in front of you, right? I mean, it's right there. So why wouldn't I take advantage of this privilege that I automatically have, because I'm not really aware. I just know that it works to my advantage. like gaslighting, like you name it. And so I love the words that you use, Savon, in terms of awareness. I think that's kind of key. And in that moment saying, that's what you're doing. This is it right here. And this is what you don't want to do. Because our kids, for the most part, they love us. They want to impress their parents. You know, my son would be torn apart if I said something to the effect of, I can't trust you, or, you know, that would be really hurtful for my son. He wants me to be proud of him, obviously. And so, yeah, just the awareness in that moment and saying, calling it out. I think then that little voice in their head, as they do grow and mature, and as they're around other groups of people, we're equipping them with those tools so that there's little voices and they could say to themselves, my mom would call me on this, and this, I'm doing it again, you know. And I think that's great.
So these are all really excellent points that we've exchanged today. It never ceases to amaze me, women's brilliance, to be honest with you. If you've done the right work, not every white woman, not every woman is, you know, setting a great example here, but I would like to say that I think that the people that are here today are providing really good explanations for why you can't excuse your own bullshit as a white woman. And you do need to, every white woman has the responsibility to try and change, you know, the set of our future for the better of all of humanity. And so with that, do any of you, we'll start with Siobhan, have any closing points that you'd like to add about white women in the patriarchy? Do you just want to like yell at some bitches? What do you want to do? Like,
I mean, you know, it's like I did like for quite a while, like want to yell at some bitches. And I mean, I could too. I do have some notes here to do that. But I can say, all jokes aside, it's really important that when we have these conversations, that the white women that are listening, that are going, well, not all women, and they feel as though that they are doing their part, you know, to be anti-racist, anti-patriarchy, you know. I think it's really important that when you think you're being an ally is what makes you anti-racist and that absolves you of your sins. When Black women say do the work, what they're talking about is recognizing the deep, dark roots. And we're born, white women are born and bred to be compliant. And because of that, it is very deep-seated. And when you start doing the work and you start to decolonize and you start to break down that generational trauma and all those horrific things that you know your parents grew up with and what they put you through and what you grew up with, and when you realize that through all this trauma and everything, you're still on top, the only reason you're there is because of white supremacy. And it's okay to be wrong, and it's okay to recognize that we have hurt people, and that everything that the four of us are saying, whether or not you want to perceive it in that way, it is out of love, because we care and we are angry because we love humanity. We love our children. We love your children. We love, you know, the world. And so we're angry because we're hurt, because we love you, and we're angry with you because you're not doing the work. And we're running out of time here. We're running out of time. So this isn't a personal attack on you. This is those of us that are waking up and getting there. It's really important that you understand that it's not about you, and it never has been. And it's okay. It's okay that it's not about you, because everything in white supremacy is about you, and everything is going wrong. So obviously that's not working.
White women need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, and it's about giving people a seat at the table that haven't been there before.
Exactly. We need
Mandy,
to move on and we need to give space to everyone else. We've had it long enough.
Mandy, what are your closing thoughts?
You know, I think historically, the argument against women having equal rights has been, well, the fear of change, right? The fear of losing that power. You know, live in that fear, explore that fear. It's okay to be afraid of that, but then move past that. I think it is a lot of women that I know anyway they get to a point where suddenly they start to like have an aha moment. They start to sort of see, oh shit, like I didn't recognize that. And unfortunately for a lot of white women in my experience, it takes a personal experience to get there. And now we're seeing, since Roe v. Wade and everything else, like never before, women suddenly have these, oh fuck moments. Like this is starting to impact me. White women in particular, things like IVF, like they thought they were so safe and secure. And now it's even that's on the table. Like, don't let it take something happening before you start to see it. Listen to other people's stories. Recognize that you don't have to be the most important person in the room. And the only reason, to your point, Siobhan, the only reason you are is built in white supremacy and the patriarchy. You wouldn't otherwise be the most important person in the room, and you shouldn't be. I would much rather be the least important person and learn from those around me. So, you know, I get angry every election cycle when we see the numbers. I get angry every time I see protesters, you know, the pro-force birthers, and I get angry. But we just have to keep at it. You know, there was one of the arguments made against suffrage was, well, if women get the right to vote, what's it going to matter? Most women don't want to. And if they do, they're either just going to vote the same as their husband or they're going to annul their husband's vote. Well, God damn it, go annul your husband's fucking vote. Just do it. Because your husband's vote is not in your best interest. It never was, and it never will be. And if I could call some bitches out, yeah, fuck off, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Like, really? Just get fucked.
Something that a lot of, because I live near the reservation, I have a lot of interaction with Native people in my area, and they say, and Aunt Kaylee, if anybody follows her on TikTok, white women need to sit down, shut up, and listen. And boy, that really just, if that doesn't say it right there, I mean, that's the truth. We need to stop doing this, look at me, and start looking at other people and saying, okay. I mean, Amy, what are your closing thoughts?
Well, I would just say, just to add to everyone's points, which are of course brilliant, and Mandy bringing up the fact that, you know, the patriarchy has made it so that we don't have an alliance with one another. They enjoy seeing the racism between women and white women, you know, not wanting black women to sit at the table and vice versa. They love the separation, the segregation that still exists, and they feed into that, whether subtle or not, because women are a larger number. And once women realize that we are actually all in this together, even though we have different experiences, but when it comes down to the patriarchy, and again, going along with what Mandy was saying in terms of our focus, they're trying to distract. And while we continue this interfighting, which breaks all the way down, look at the LGBTQIA group, there's inner fighting within our group as well, a group in which I identify. And it drives me crazy. It just makes me crazy. And so they want it that way. And as long as we allow them to keep us separated and fighting and distracted, they will continue to, the patriarchy will continue to flourish. And that's exactly, as soon as we break these walls down. And I think with Roe v. Wade crashing around us, a lot of white women were like, whoa, and black women were like, we told you all along.
Forever.
We told you all along. And they've been doing this to us since the beginning of time. You know, wake up.
Yeah.
And I think that had a good, if anything good came out of that, you know, if I could find the positive somewhere, at least it opened up a lot of white women's eyes to, holy shit, they could rip our rights right from us. And that's sometimes what it takes, unfortunately. But, you know, here we are, and I see improvements, and I see it getting better. We have got to continue to drudge forward, as painful as it is some days.
I mean, my closing thoughts are that you need to divorce your Republican husband. And when I tell you that I could never go back, I mean, once that seed was planted in me and I really started doing the hard work, I can never go back. And I'm better than I ever been. Okay, bitches at home. So you better just get on that shit and just come to Jesus with it, metaphorically, and get over yourselves is what needs to happen. So Siobhan, where can people find, I mean, I want to thank you for coming on today, and where can people find you at? Or what do you want to plug?
Well, I'm on TikTok, running with scissors. That's me. My Facebook and Instagram got hacked by somebody in Thailand, so I haven't had control of it.
Oh,
Yikes.
yeah, follow her shit. She's good. She's good for, I mean, you wake up in the morning, you're looking for a good laugh and also a little bit of historical insight. Siobhan's the person for you. Just all real all day long. And then Mandy, where can they find you, or what do you want to plug?
You can find me on TikTok and Instagram. I'm also on Twitter, and I'm sort of dabbling in YouTube, but you're not going to find a lot there. So definitely TikTok and Twitter. I make men mad a lot.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's why we love you guys.
Yay!
I'm not going to stop. But
But yeah, I mean, that's our show. Join us next time when we talk about why we'd sooner hire a drag queen than we would a church pastor to babysit our kids.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
until then, remember, Doug, women don't owe you shit.